some missions sound impossible until someone dares to try them. That's exactly what happened when the GeoWizard, known for his straight line missions and wild geography challenges, decided to tackle a completely different kind of adventure. A journey across a city without setting foot on a single road. No streets, no sidewalks, no crosswalks. Just a self-imposed rule to navigate entirely through parks, alleyways, riversides, footpaths, and any other legal, non-road routes. It sounds ridiculous, right? But as with most GeoWizard adventures, the absurdity is half the appeal. Now, if you've ever been to a typical UK city, you'll know this isn't a place designed for road-free navigation. British cities grew in messy, organic ways. Centuries of streets layered over each other. A tangled mix of medieval paths, Victorian roads, and modern highways. Even the pedestrian zones often connect back to roads within a few hundred meters. So the idea of crossing an entire city without stepping onto a road, that's urban exploration turned into a strategic puzzle. The city of choice for this mission was Oxford. It's a place known for its ancient colleges, winding alleyways, and hidden courtyards. On paper, it seemed like the perfect candidate. Enough footpaths, college grounds, and riverside trails to make the mission possible, maybe. But as with all things GeoWizard, the reality on the ground was a different beast entirely. Starting at the southern edge of Oxford, the challenge kicked off by hopping straight onto the Thames path. It felt like cheating at first. This peaceful riverside trail winding quietly away from traffic noise. The sun was out, joggers and cyclists passed by, and it almost seemed too easy. But within a few minutes, the first problem emerged. The footpath curved away from the intended direction, pushing towards the city center. Sticking to it would mean heading off course, but veering away risked stepping onto a road. Already, the tension between sticking to the route and obeying the mission rules started to bite. And that's the core of these GeoWizard urban adventures, balancing logic, creativity, and an often ridiculous commitment to arbitrary rules. It's not about taking the easy path. It's about making the hard path work. Early on, the mission ran into a classic urban obstacle, a dead-end footpath. What looked like a continuous pedestrian route on the map ended abruptly at a high fence. Beyond it, a car park with no sidewalk, no pedestrian access, just an expanse of tarmac. Most people would cut across it and move on. But that's not the GeoWizard way. Instead, it turned into a scramble through a narrow hedge, squeezing alongside a canal, and clambering over a small embankment just to avoid stepping onto asphalt. Unnecessary, maybe. But for this challenge, absolutely essential. And that's when the magic of the mission started to show itself. Taking the road-free route forced a perspective shift. Instead of seeing the city as a network of roads with buildings in between, it became a patchwork of green spaces, hidden trails, and overlooked gaps between structures. It was like discovering a secret Oxford most people never notice. The next section of the mission brought a completely different kind of problem: navigating through the college grounds. Oxford's historic colleges are famous for their beautiful courtyards, ancient buildings, and manicured lawns. But they're also private property. Walking through them isn't always allowed, and when you're trying to dodge roads, even the most welcoming quad suddenly feels like a minefield of restricted access signs. So, how do you get around this? By timing, charm, and a bit of luck. Slipping through open gates, mingling briefly with tour groups, and keeping a low profile allowed access through parts of Oxford that felt like walking through a history book. The irony wasn't lost. Here was a man on a bizarre urban mission, blending in among tourists, snapping selfies in front of centuries-old chapels, all while meticulously plotting every step to avoid the dreaded road. But here's the thing about Oxford, or any old city really: the layout doesn't care about your mission. Narrow alleyways turn into dead ends, footpaths that seem promising on a map stop at locked gates, and canals that could offer the perfect route twist away from your destination. One particularly memorable moment came when the route hit the Oxford Canal towpath, a peaceful, tree-lined stretch running alongside the water. It felt like a gift, an uninterrupted stretch of road-free bliss. But then came the low bridges, the occasional work crews blocking sections, and even a group of curious swans who seemed more interested in blocking the towpath than letting a random GeoWizard through. And yet, that's what makes these missions more than just quirky challenges. They become a study in patience, creativity, and persistence. Every obstacle isn't just a setback. It's a new puzzle to solve. As the mission progressed into the city center, the challenge ramped up. Oxford's heart is a dense mix of pedestrian areas crisscrossed by roads, alleyways that don't quite connect, and tourist, heavy spots where every step off the main path risks breaking the mission rules. Navigating this felt like trying to thread a needle blindfolded, and then came the rooftops. No, seriously. At one point, the only way to maintain a legal, road-free route meant clambering onto a low wall, crossing through a parking garage, without touching the vehicle access areas, and using a service stairwell that led, briefly, onto a building rooftop used for maintenance access. Was it within the rules? Technically, yes. Did it make sense? In the world of GeoWizard urban adventures, absolutely. That's part of the fun. Watching how absurd the solutions get when you refuse to bend your own rules. It's a reminder that sometimes, sticking to your principles, even the silly self-imposed ones, leads to the most unexpected and memorable moments. Oxford Central Parks offered some much-needed relief. Christ Church Meadow, with its open lawns and riverside paths, gave a wide open space to reset, catch a breath, and push forward. This section of the mission felt less like an urban challenge and more like a peaceful walk through nature. Until the realization hit that every exit out of the park led straight onto a road. The final stretch involved a painstaking zigzag through back gardens, sneaky footbridges, and tiny pedestrian lanes. It wasn't fast, it wasn't efficient, but it stayed true to the mission. And as the endpoint finally came into view, a small pedestrian plaza surrounded by shops and cafes, the sense of achievement was real, not because it was a massive feat of endurance, but because it was proof that even the most ridiculous-sounding missions can reveal something unexpected about the world around us. For the GeoWizard, the Ook City Without Roads mission wasn't just a quirky challenge for YouTube. It was a deeper dive into how we move through urban spaces, how we overlook the quiet corners, and how stepping away from the obvious path can show us a side of the city we've never really seen. The comments from viewers poured in. People sharing their own urban adventures, stories of discovering hidden parks in their hometowns, and even pledging to try similar missions themselves. It sparked a community conversation, not just about exploration, but about perspective. And maybe that's the real heart of the GeoWizard's urban adventures. It's not about breaking records or making epic climbs. It's about seeing the world, any world, even a familiar one, in a new way. It's about curiosity, creativity, and the quiet thrill of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. So if you're watching this and thinking, that's mad, but kind of brilliant, maybe it's time to set your own challenge. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. Maybe it's exploring your city without using your phone, or walking home by a route you've never taken before, or even just finding the quietest corner of a park you thought you knew. Because sometimes, the smallest adventures open up the biggest worlds. If this mission sparked your curiosity, stick around for our next video where we follow the GeoWizard on another urban exploration. This time, an attempt to cross a Ook town entirely by underground routes and hidden passages. Trust me, you won't believe how far you can get without ever walking the surface streets.